compost is the building block to a healthy organic garden. It's what builds our soil fertility. So what we have here is a bin, a top, and a base. We've got some extra pieces of wood that we use just to prop this off the base so that the liquid has a place to go as opposed to sitting. Newspaper that I'm gonna shred. I've got food scraps from last night's meal, and I got worms. Technically called California red wigglers. It's a special type of worm that eats food scraps and paper. I pre-drilled the holes in the base here. Remember, vegetables are full of moisture, and that moisture wants to go somewhere. We don't want it to sit in the bottom of our bin and turn into an anaerobic system. So I've drilled some holes here, make sure that liquid drains. I'm gonna take newspaper and I'm gonna shred it up. Newspaper is a preferred material for composting. Why? Because it actually absorbs moisture. This newsprint, as well as these soy-based inks, are non-toxic. So it's better than copy paper, for example. Copy paper is a little bit tighter bond. It doesn't absorb the moisture. The worms will still eat it. It just takes a little longer to decompose. So use newspaper when you can. The paper to avoid is the shiny, glossy stuff. Not only can you not recycle that stuff, but your worms can't eat it either. We'll continue shredding here. What we want to do is create a nice base for our worms. We want a good inch or so of newspaper on the bottom. And because the newspaper is so dry, I'm gonna moisten it a little bit. I've got a spray bottle here just to get the worm bin nicely moistened. There is a balance here of moisture with our worm bin. Starting off, we're not gonna have that problem, but down the road, we're gonna keep an eye on it. If it's too wet, it's gonna rot. If it's too dry, it's not gonna decompose. So this moisture we're looking for is like a wrung out sponge. Not rocket science. If you have too much moisture in your bin, you just add more shredded newspaper. If you got too much dryness, you just add a little bit of water. To start your bin, you're gonna wanna use uncooked food, just like I'm using. The leaves of your lettuce, some celery that you didn't wanna put into vegetable stock, however it goes. Let's just break it up here. Cabbage, outside cabbage leaves, carrot tops that you didn't wanna do something with. This is kind of a layering effect, kind of like we're making a lasagna. It's equal layers. We put in about 1.5 to 2 inches of shredded newspaper. We did about an equal base layer of shredded vegetable material, another 1.5 inches or so. Let's put a teeny bit of moisture in here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and throw in my worms. They're hungry. If you're starting the system and you don't have a friend that can give you a couple handfuls of worms, you're gonna buy them online. What you're gonna buy is a pound of red wigglers to get the bin started. We're not trying to fill the bin. This isn't a compost pile, this is a worm bin. Once the system started, it's just 2 layers that we're adding. We're adding a layer of food scraps, and we're covering the layer very thoroughly with shredded newspaper. Here's a bin we've been composting with for about 3 months. If you open it up, we'll see that the moisture has found its center. Ultimately, we're not putting more moisture into this. The food scraps are now adding its own moisture to the shredded newspaper. So you can see that shredded newspaper is always the top layer. Super important. As I pull away the shredded, moistened newspaper, I'm gonna get to a more finished product. I still see some vegetables in here, still decomposing, but what I see, what's looking more like a finished compost. So this is a gorgeous, gorgeous material. This compost is called worm castings, and it's very potent. If we're composting indoor plants, we really only need a tablespoon per plant. If we're composting vegetables, just a sprinkling around the base. We're gonna use this as a top dressing. So very useful material. Any plant will love this. Again, it doesn't only build nutrition in the soil, it builds structure. As you can see, composting can be really easy. Start with a worm bin. Simple container, shredded newspaper, delicious organic food scraps, and worms. It's the magic formula. Once or twice a week, you spend about 5 minutes putting each layer of food in there. Remember, the shredded newspaper always goes on top. Let's keep these amazing nutrients out of our landfill and building healthy organic gardens.